So the first thing you need to do is talk to a financial person, a CDFA, a retirement planner, somebody who really knows, who can take an unbiased look at what your finances is and what that would look like going through the divorce. Because once you clear that fear, then you can make better decisions. Because if you don't know where you stand in the finances, that's going to, like you said, either lock you into staying in a relationship you want to get out of, or you may get out of the relationship not strategically and end up leaving a lot of money on the table.
Welcome to another episode of the Simply Retirement Podcast, where we want to empower and educate women to live your retirement on your terms. I'm your host, Eric Blake, practicing retirement planner with over 25 years of experience, founder of Blake Wealth Management, and I would not be the man I am today without the women in my life. On today's episode, I'm going to be joined by Mardi Winder, a strategic divorce consultant and the founder of Positive Communication Systems. Mardi works with high-achieving individuals, primarily women, who are navigating separation and divorce, often in high conflict and high asset situations. Her focus is helping clients reduce the emotional and financial cost of divorce by strengthening decision-making, communication, and conflict management. On today's show, we're going to be talking about why divorce, especially later in life, can feel so overwhelming and how the right support can make a meaningful difference, and what women should be thinking about as they move through divorce and into the next phase of life. Mardi, welcome to the Simply Retirement Podcast.
Thank you, Eric. And I so appreciate the opportunity to be here and speak with your audience today.
Absolutely. And I thought something was interesting as I was preparing. I came across, and that's one of the so great things about having a podcast now is some of the great people that I've come across and gotten a chance to meet. But as I was preparing for our conversation, I came across your podcast, of course, and we have very similar introductions.
Yeah.
You start your podcast with something that says, where we provide inspiration, motivation, and education to help you transition from the challenges of divorce to discover the freedom and the ability to live life on your terms. I wanted to throw that out there, just get your thoughts where you came up with that. But just again, that coincidence of how we start our podcast.
Well, I think that's the goal, right? Back in the day, divorce was often seen as sort of this horrible, terrible, almost like an end of life situation where you just, especially for women, and I'm thinking like back in the 50s and earlier, and even into the 60s and 70s. And even today, I still hear people who think that, divorce is kind of the end. And it is the end of one chapter of your life, but it's certainly not the end. And there's so many possibilities moving forward, including getting more grounded on who you are, what you want to do, and how you want to spend the next however long you have on planet Earth.
Right. Well, and I'd love to just, if you don't mind, just share your background and actually what led you to the work that you're doing today.
Yeah, thank you, Eric. So I'm a Canadian living in Texas, so it's a unique experience.
I bet. Yeah.
I went through my own divorce. I married later in life. I was in my 30s when I married, and I was also in my 30s when I divorced. We had about a 5-6 year relationship, and it wasn't a horrible marriage. There wasn't abuse like many women and men are facing in their relationships. It's just one of those situations where we probably should have stayed really good friends and not taken it to the marriage level. And it was just sort of that slowly, even within 5 years, it was, we were going in different directions already. We could have stayed probably really good friends for life, but unfortunately divorce came through and we didn't have children, but it still became something that should have been a really simple process, became incredibly, conflict. Other people got involved. People took sides, and things were done that just should have never occurred during a divorce. And I don't go into all the details, but it wasn't a pleasant experience. And I just thought at that time, there's got to be something better. So I started, was actually during my divorce, was also doing my training to become a family and divorce mediator. So did that, got a lot of insight with that. And then over the years, just slowly, I started seeing more and more people who were very capable, were very confident in their life. And then they went through divorce and just had very similar experiences to mine. And I thought there's got to be something I can do to help them. Spent some time as a domestic violence client advocate. So I saw firsthand the abuse side of that. And one of my roles was to help people prepare for divorce, divorcing those abusive partners. So that was a real different perspective on it. And then went into leadership and executive coaching. And sure enough, people would Google you when they hired you and find out, hey, she's a divorce mediator. So a lot of times we would spend a lot of the time, the struggles that people were having in their business relationships had to do with struggles that were in their personal relationships. And so in 2015, I just decided that's it. I'm going to, go the divorce coaching route. And I got into it relatively early, like before a lot of people were doing divorce coaching. So, and the industry has certainly evolved, or the service has certainly evolved now, where you've got several different options for divorce coaches.
That's awesome. But it's always love to hear the background of stories of how people got into it, because there's almost always a good story behind it, and it's not. And sometimes it's a challenging story, of course. But it almost leads to that passion of what you do, why you do it, all those types of things that can really now help you make a difference in other people's lives.
Well, I think so. And I do agree with you. I think people that have been through it have a different perspective than people that just have sort of an academic understanding of what's going on.
Now, one of the things I would love to get your perspective on, because you hear, depending on where you look, there's a lot of stats out there right now that are indicating that divorce rates are declining.
Mm-hmm.
But divorce among people over 50, what we obviously call gray divorce, has actually increased quite a bit, especially over these last few years. And I would just love to get your perspective on, are there any specific causes, patterns, anything you're seeing from your side of things as to why this is happening? Why is there more divorce happening later in life?
Yeah, I think this is a really good question. And it's interesting, the whole idea that divorce is decreasing. It's so interesting how statistics can be kind of manipulated to make it, because all at the same time, the marriage rates are dropping. So it makes sense that,
Right,
but
there you go.
yes, you're right. Definitely the gray divorce is the most, the demographic that's growing in the divorce rate. And I think there's several things, Eric. Honestly, I think number one, people are living a lot longer, and people are staying in the workplace a lot longer. So, tied in with the fact that women now in many cases, they may be the moneyed spouse in the relationship, or they may have stayed at home and looked after the kids. And now the kids are off on their own and highly successful. The spouse who's been in the workplace for the last 3 or 4 decades or whatever is now looking at retirement. And the woman quite often is going, wow, now it's time I have for me. And this is what I would like to do. I would like to start a nonprofit. I would like to go back into the workplace. I would like to get my master's or doctorate degree. And the spouses just have very different visions of what the next 20 years are going to look like. And it just, there's no point in staying in a bad relationship. I don't know. You can work on it all you want, but if it's not going to get fixed, it doesn't matter how hard you try or how long you stay in it. It's not going to get better. So I think a lot of people now see, let's divorce, let's keep it real, let's get a divorce, and let's go on and do what we both want to do for the next X number of years that we have in our future. And I think those are the big ones.
Well, I think that's what I'd love to, again, get your perspective on this is, our primary, what we consider our audience is women over 55. And actually one of the challenges is that in that circumstance, divorce and retirement often kind of clash, right? From a timing perspective, when you're thinking about, you're trying to think out, well, you spend the last 20 or 30 years married, but you're also probably working, saving for retirement. And all of a sudden we're approaching this phase where we got to figure out, how do we start using these resources? You got to start making decisions on Social Security, which divorce can really throw a huge kink into that, to put it nicely. So just from, again, thinking about, these later in life challenges, especially for women, where's that emotional and financial aspect? There's obviously, again, kind of a clash there. What are your thoughts on whether that's women either deciding to stay in a marriage a little bit longer than what they should have, or just that decision to say, okay, I've got to deal with all these things if I get divorced? How does all that fit together from your side?
Well, I am not a financial person. So the first thing I do when I get clients coming to me that are saying, I don't know if I can afford to divorce somebody because I don't know if I can continue to maintain the lifestyle I want to live. And that may not be like a super affluent, going cruising and doing everything else. It could just be, would she even be able to qualify for a home? Because if she's been out of the workplace, she doesn't have any income. Do you even qualify for a mortgage? Could you assume the mortgage in the house? Like all of these kind of things. You're right. So the first thing I do is I require my clients to go talk to somebody like you and get a clear picture on where they are. I believe that a lot of women, especially if they've been out of the workplace for a while, have this fear, or there's not a big asset, a big estate to divide up. They have this fear that they're going to be broke, they're going to be homeless, they're going to be out on the streets. And I'm not sure what the statistic, but I think it's something like 1 in 10 women that goes through the gray divorce will fall below the poverty line.
That sounds about right. I don't know the exact statistic either, but yeah, I couldn't imagine that's.
Yeah, I just read it. It's either 1 in 10 or 1 in 7. And I think women in particular, are really scared of that. So the first thing you need to do is talk to a financial person, a CDFA, a retirement planner, somebody who really knows, who can take an unbiased look at what your finances is and what that would look like going through the divorce. Because once you clear that fear, then you can make better decisions. Because if you don't know where you stand in the finances, that's going to, like you said, either lock you into staying in a relationship you want to get out of, or you may get out of the relationship not strategically and end up leaving a lot of money on the table during your settlement process. So first step, talk to the financial expert and really get a clear picture on what your decision options are at that time.
Well, and the other thing, I'd just throw this out there as well. I would encourage people, women, if you're going through that situation, be sure you're talking to a financial professional that has experience in these situations.
Yes.
Because again, the retirement income phase of life is completely different than the accumulation phase, especially when you're talking about Social Security and whether you are going to be eligible for your own benefit versus a spousal or ex-spousal benefit. Even the fact that you might still be eligible for survivor benefits at some point down the road, even if you get divorced.
Right.
So I definitely take that in consideration as well. If you're going through those, trying to make those big decisions, talk to somebody who has that level of financial experience that is important for you.
Yeah, because knowledge is power. Once you know, then you're not guessing, and please don't, I'm sure you say this, Eric, I've listened to a couple of your podcasts. I've heard other people say this. Don't go by like your neighbor or your sister or your best friend that got a divorce. Every case is different, and you need to know the specifics for your case.
I think that kind of transitions us into, I think, a conversation that you do focus on, and that is, as you're going through this process, how do you minimize or reduce the cost of going through that, where coaching may actually come in and play a big role?
Yeah, thank you for that. And I think that is an important thing, because sometimes people say, well, how can hiring somebody save me money? And it does, because one of the things that I help my clients do is take that big sense of, I don't know what to do. I don't know where I'm going. I don't know what questions to ask. And we'll have a meeting before you meet with your attorney and develop, okay, what specific questions do you need to ask your attorney to understand step A in the process, step B, step C. I think what happens is I know for myself, when I went through my divorce, all I could see was the end picture of being through the divorce. I didn't realize the 1,000,001 decisions you have to make between now and then, and how each one of those decisions can have a big impact on the outcome. So I really help people take that big kind of funnel of, I don't know what's going on. We get it really narrowed down so that you're asking your financial professional the right questions. You're asking your attorney the legal questions, not the financial questions or the therapeutic questions. And sometimes that means bringing other professionals in. Sometimes you might want to talk to a certified divorce lending professional to know if you qualify. Like all of these kind of people, and a lot of them do consults. It doesn't end up costing you a lot of money. But if you don't even know who those professionals are, you may be making less informed decisions than you could be with just a quick phone call. So that is one of the things I do, is really strategically position the client to have the best team and to also have access to the information they need. Then we talk about decision making, we talk about mediation strategies, we talk about emotional regulation, and I always work with my clients on self-care. And that's not, bubble baths and chocolate and fancy wine or coffee or whatever you drink. It's really talking about what are you, exercise, sleep, nutrition. Are you finding yourself getting emotionally unstable or worried or overly distressed or anxious? And maybe there's an opportunity to work with a therapist or a healer of some kind to really help you deal with those kind of issues as well.
Hey everyone, it's Eric. Hope you're enjoying today's episode. I want to take just a quick moment to share a resource I think you'll find valuable. Have you ever found yourself asking, how much can I put into an IRA this year? Or how much can I earn before my Social Security gets reduced? Those are the kinds of questions that come up all the time, and the answers change often more than you think. That's why we created a free 2-page tax and retirement planning cheat sheet, updated for 2026, with the key tax, Social Security, and retirement numbers all in one place. You can download it right now at the simplyretirementpodcast.com/retirement cheat sheet. It's a simple reference you can keep handy whenever questions come up. Now, back to the episode. Well, I think that's, again, one of the big benefits of the podcast is the opportunity to talk to great people. But that's even one of the things I know I've spent a lot of time focusing on, I'm trying to learn more about, is even just from the very beginning of knowing that there's even different types of divorces. I mean, it doesn't, I know so many women that I've talked to that think it's just, you just go to court and you got to fight it out and that's it. But that's not really the case.
Right.
And it's just a matter of, again, having somebody like yourself who can provide some direction that alleviates so much more stress, I think, than the unknown.
Yeah, and only about 20% of divorces ever get to the litigation phase. Those are just the ones you hear about because they're the celebrity divorces and the ones that get the splashy headlines. Most divorces are settled in mediation, or even I work with collaborative law. That's it's not a new practice, but it's a more popular practice now. And even couples directly negotiating with each other. And then just kind of getting an agreement just in regular human language and then taking it to an attorney and getting it translated into legalese so that it can go through the court. There's lots of options now you can even, here in Texas, you can actually have some aspects of your divorce by jury trial. Now, I don't know anybody that would want to do that, but you can. And you can, in different areas, you can even have divorce by arbitration, where you go in front of an arbitrator to get your divorce settled. And another really cool one I've just heard about are these divorce retreats. And I'm really interested to learn more about this. So these are for people that are relatively amicable, where you go away to a destination, maybe at, wherever that may be, and your attorney goes with you. And in 3 days, you sit down in this beautiful resort or wherever you choose to go, and you hammer out your divorce settlement. And at the end of that 3 days, whatever you haven't decided, in some cases, you agree to allow the attorney to make recommendations and write that into the divorce decree. So you could go away, have a vacation, and get your divorce done all in 3 days or 4 days or whatever time limit.
I don't know if that counts as best of both worlds. I don't know. I don't know where that fits in, but sounds like a pretty good idea if you're dealing with divorce or potential divorce.
Yeah, there's lots of creative options out there now.
Absolutely. Now you kind of touched on this earlier, but I do wanted to come back to it. The idea that, many women feel like once the divorce is final, they're expecting this big feeling of relief that it's finally over and I'm going to move on. But a lot of times there's still a significant level of uncertainty, even sometimes maybe a loss of direction. From what you see, what are the challenges that tend to show up after that paperwork is done, everything is signed? How can women better prepare for that next chapter?
Well, I think the best thing is to work with somebody who can give you that post-divorce support. So really, there's going to be all kinds of, I'm going to call them kind of life maintenance things that are going to happen. Maybe you're going to have to open up separate bank accounts. If you've got, if you've got quadro stuff you've got to deal with, then you've got to go through all of that. And that's legal paperwork and working with another attorney to get those retirement transfers and things made. You've got to maybe look at qualifying for a mortgage. You might have to look at buying a place or renting a place. A lot of women that I work with are trying to decide if they want to move into some of these new upscale, senior communities where You can start, there's independent housing, and then you can slowly, if you need additional care as you age, there's options to move up through the levels. So do you want to do that? Do you want to buy a house? Do you want to rent an apartment? Do you want to invest in a condo? There are a lot of decisions to make, and that can be overwhelming for a lot of women, because it's like we finally got the divorce and we just want to just let everything be for a minute. You really can't. You have to stay on all that stuff. The other thing that you talked about, I call it kind of the post-divorce void. And I see this with women, especially that have been in, I'm going to call them high conflict divorces, or adversarial divorces, where there's been a lot of legal back and forth. And it's like you almost feel like every morning you're waking up and you're dressing for battle, and you just hate to open your email because there's going to be something else coming through, either from the soon-to-be ex or the attorney or some other professional on your team. And I think for a lot of women, the divorce becomes who they are. Like, it becomes their battle. And some of these divorces I work with, Eric, I don't know if you see this, but they're dragging out 2-3 years and longer. So you have invested your life into this 3 years to get what you need out of this failed relationship or this unsuccessful relationship. And then all of a sudden it's over. And it's like, well, who am I now? What am I doing? For 3 years, I've been this warrior woman every day, and now I don't have anything to do. So there can be that sense of just nothingness and loss of direction. And that's where, again, when I work with my clients, I start on day one. Where do you want to be a year, 5 years, 10 years post-divorce? Because if we know what that looks like, we can start planning for that now, so you don't go through that period of not having a clue. Kind of, I don't want to say not having a clue, but not having a sense of where you want to go.
So where do you, in particular for your business and in your coaching, where within the divorce framework do you feel like you fit? Is it on the beginning in preparation for the divorce, in the middle of, after? Where do you feel like you do your best work?
So I pretty much cover clients in the contemplative stage through to the divorce decree, and then minimal support getting set up afterwards. I don't do relationship coaching. I don't do life coaching. I have some great referral people that I can send women to if they feel that those things would be beneficial. So mine is really, I like to say, in the strategic part of the divorce. So when you've got to be making all those decisions, kind of helping you, I don't want to say case manage, but almost like a concierge. You can come to me and say, hey, what do you need? Or I don't understand what the lawyer wants when they're saying they need these documents. What do I do with that? And how can I strategically plan for this conversation with my ex? That's really my focus.
Sometimes I kind of just explain it when you're talking to your estate planning attorney about your will and your power of attorney and all those, that I help translate that from legal into English.
Yeah.
So I wonder if I would expect that that's something along the lines of what you do as well, is just trying to take all this stuff, bring it down into chewable pieces that a little less overwhelming.
Right. And I don't provide legal advice, and I don't provide financial advice. And I think that's really important, because if I was to give legal advice, I'm not an attorney. That's unlicensed practice of the law, number one. And I don't want to put myself in that. But I also may not be giving you the right information. I mean, I work with clients all around the world, and I don't know what the specific divorce laws are in your jurisdiction. So it's really important. That's why I recommend to specific financial professionals, because again, I have a rudimentary understanding of things like Social Security and retirement planning and all that, but I am not the expert that you are. And it would be a disservice to clients to share what I think is the right option, because how do I know that that's right for them? And that's where I think in divorce, we have more options now. When I went through mine, you just went to your attorney and they just told you what to do. And I don't want women to be in that same situation. I want them to have the access to the professionals they need to make those informed decisions.
Well, so can you talk a little bit more about that, about the importance of having a team and having, whether it's you as kind of the central figure and reaching out those other spokes around the wheel that might be the financial professional, or you talked about the certified divorce lending professionals, which I think that's a relatively new term, but in having my own interaction with them, it's extremely important, especially in these days of higher interest rates.
Right.
But can you just talk about the importance of having the right team around you as you're navigating these decisions?
Yeah. And thank you for that, Eric. I think that's a really important question because the right team is not just a checkbox of professionals you should have, because everybody's divorce looks different and everybody's life experience is different. If I have a client that has been very actively involved in the retirement planning and the financial management, um, you know, they may or she may feel very comfortable in making some of these decisions with just a one-time consult with a financial professional. And then on the flip side, I may have somebody who has, by choice or by because of not being allowed access to the financial information in the family, may never have dealt with this. She is going to need a lot more support and a lot more education around the whole financial aspect. So I believe that the team looks individual for everybody, and the team is not there to be one like big happy family that's exchanging information all the time. I don't see that that's typically necessary. I see that the client goes and talks to professional A and accesses their expertise and then is able to share that with the other professionals on the team. Occasionally there's cross consultation, but not too terribly often, I don't find anyhow. I do find lawyers and financial professionals do chat more often than any other people on the team. But the more important thing, I think, is that every person on that team is somebody that the client is comfortable with. And who, I'm not the divorce coach for every woman. I'm sure you wouldn't say I'm the financial guy for everybody.
No.
I think we have to, as the client, as the person that's hiring the team or working with the team, you have to be comfortable. Can you communicate with them? Are they available when you need to talk to them? Time zones are great, but they do make scheduling a bit of a problem sometimes. And do you trust the professional? That's the other thing is if you're going to go talk to somebody about big decisions, you want to be able to say, I 100% trust this person. But who was it that said that? Ronald Reagan, trust but verify. I think you do have to do your research. Like if you're
Right.
divorce team professional, anybody on the team tells you something that sounds off or just doesn't seem true, check it out with somebody else on the team. But you should have, I really think that's the important part, is that level of trust and belief that your team is there to do the best, have your best interests at heart.
Well, as I tell prospective clients all the time, if somebody tells you they help everybody, you probably need to go a different direction.
Yeah, they really help nobody.
Especially I know in our field, the decisions that a 55-year-old in a divorce situation versus a 35-year-old, those decisions are just completely different, especially if there's children involved or whatever else might be involved. But it's just that I don't even think financial advisors can be I'm the best for everybody. That just doesn't work. I don't think there's different rules, different guidelines, different everything.
Right. And I do think that it's harder for people over 55 to find, or 55, to find experts who do have that real world experience. And it's not just financial planners, it's attorneys, it's, anybody. You want to make sure that you are working with somebody that really does understand the short and long-term implications of whatever they're recommending or whatever decisions they're advising.
So I'm sure there's not a perfect answer to this question, but as far as, from your perspective, again, is there a ideal time? Maybe they're just contemplating divorce, or maybe the divorce process has started, when they would reach out to you, the best time to reach out to you. And then kind of what are the first 3 to 5 steps, maybe, or maybe just even 2 to 3, if that's easier, that you would help with if somebody were to reach out to you looking for guidance?
Yeah. So thank you, Eric. I always tell people the earlier the better, because once you make decisions, especially once you start hiring your team, it's not like you get a refund in most cases. I've worked with women who have gone through 2 or 3 attorneys because they've hired, their best friend recommended this attorney, so they hired the attorney, and they put up a $5,000 or $10,000 retainer. And in all honesty, that's gone, because that's just the document review. That's just, the first few meetings with the attorney. So if you go to attorney number 2 now, the first thing they're going to ask you is, why did you fire attorney number 1? And by the time you get to attorney number 3, you're going to have a hard time finding an attorney, because in their minds, there's one common denominator here in the situation, and that's the client. So I think the earlier you can get involved with somebody who can guide you. And the same thing I recommend. So I may be repeating myself, please forgive me, but I recommend before any of my clients even start looking for an attorney, they talk to a financial planner first. And I know we talked about that. So because I do think when you have that money piece, then you can go talk to your attorney and be very clear as to, this is what I want as a settlement. How do you see this playing out? Is this a possibility for me? If you don't have that financial piece, you maybe don't have the questions that you need to be able to ask. So the earlier in the process you can start working with anybody who can guide you, I think it's really helpful, because those first few weeks and months are the time where you can make really costly mistakes.
Almost ready to wrap up here, and I want to make sure I'm going to give you the chance to share all your links and your podcast and all that good stuff. But I did want you to touch on just real quickly, because I know there's nothing on the calendar just yet, but the D-Shift Summit. I think that was such a cool idea, and that's actually part of the reason I wanted to bring it up, is because that's how we got connected. Zoe Martin, who's a former guest on our podcast, sent me an email and said, "Hey, I think you'd be really great for this." That's how I reached out to you, and we got connected, and now got you on the podcast, and I'm looking forward to be on your podcast very soon as well. But can you just kind of touch on what that D-Shift Summit is actually all about?
Sure. And we actually do have a date for it, Eric. We don't have a website up yet, but we do have a date. It's going to be March 24th.
Very
and
cool.
The goal of the D-Shift Summit is to bring together divorce professionals who support. Now, the D-Shift Summit is for both men and women who support people going through divorce, both during the divorce process and after, and post-divorce support. And the goal is just an information sharing event. So it's not a sales thing. Nobody's selling anything to you. It's really just the opportunity for people going through divorce to hop on. If you can't make it that day, there is a VIP thing. You can buy the recordings and listen to them at your leisure. But it's all based on education. And the last one we had 51 speakers. So there's several tracks running at the same time. And you can pop in and listen to different speakers throughout the day. Absolutely no cost for anybody to attend. It's really education from divorce professionals and those who support people post-divorce.
It was such a cool event. I was so sorry I wasn't going to be able to participate last time. So hopefully sooner or later I'll get a chance to be one of the professionals on during the event. So just to make sure we get it out there for listeners who want to learn more about your work, your podcast, future events, what's the best way for them to connect with you?
They can just head over to the website. It is www.divorcecoach4, that's the number 4 women.com. And it's got the podcast. It's got everything on that site.
Perfect. Well, we'll be sure to include all those links of that link in the show notes. Marty, thank you so much for joining me. This has been such an important and timely conversation. I really appreciate the work that you're doing to help women navigate such a complex situation. And as always, thank you to our listeners for spending time with us today. Again, if you're navigating divorce later in life or trying to figure out what comes next, don't forget to reach out to Marty. She's got some tremendous resources. I've had a chance to learn more about her and her work, and I'm so excited to have her on. That's it for today's episode. Again, for all the links and resources mentioned, you can visit the simplyretirementpodcast.com. Please don't forget to like, follow, and share the show. And until next time, please remember, retirement is not the end of the road. It's the start of a new journey.
That's it for today's episode of the Simply Retirement Podcast. We hope you found our insights and advice helpful in planning for a fulfilling retirement. Don't forget to take action on what you've learned today. Visit our website at blakewealthmanagement.com to learn more about our firm and review our Simply Retirement Roadmap process to get you on the right path to the retirement you deserve. And don't forget to click the follow button to be notified when new episodes become available. Thank you for joining us on this journey, and we look forward to helping you achieve your retirement goals. Remember, retirement is not the end of the road. It is the start of a new journey. So embrace it and make the most of it. Until next time, take care. Content here is for illustrative purposes and general information only. It is not legal, tax, or individualized financial advice, nor is it a recommendation to buy, sell, or hold any specific security, or engage in any specific trading strategy. Results will vary. Past performance is no indication of future results or success. Market conditions change continuously. This commentary reflects the personal opinions, viewpoints, and analyses of Blake Wealth Management. It does not necessarily represent those of RFG Advisory, their clients, or their employees. This commentary should not be regarded as a description of advisory services provided by Blake Wealth Management or RFG Advisory, or performance returns of any client. The views reflected in the commentary are subject to change at any time without notice. Advisory services offered by investment advisory representatives of RFG Advisory, a registered investment advisor, Blake Wealth Management, and RFG Advisory are unaffiliated entities. Advisory services are only offered to clients or prospective clients where RFG Advisory and its representatives are properly licensed or exempt from licensure. No advisory services may be rendered by RFG Advisory unless a client agreement is in place.